Welcome back to Bryner Tech. Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 things you should know before you buy the new Galaxy S22 Ultra. To kick things off at number 10, not all phones are created equal. To elaborate on this, there is two versions of the Galaxy S22 Ultra. There is a Snapdragon version and an Exynos version, depending on your region. Year after year, Samsung promises over and over again that these are pretty much on par with each other, but in real-world tests, we have seen that that is not the case. Most of the time, the Snapdragon variant is more efficient as well as faster than the Exynos version in almost every way. Over on Team Blue, we have the Exynos 2200. This is a 4nm processor that has also been linked up with AMD graphics. What that means is that AMD has partnered up with Samsung and have brought in some of their graphics performances to this processor. Very similar technologies that are found in the PS5 as well as the Xbox Series X, which is called RDNA 2 architecture, and can also bring mobile ray tracing in the first time ever on a mobile platform. Over on Team Red, we have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. This is also a 4nm processor that has a lot of compelling things going for it. Since both of these processors are very new, we're going to have to do some extensive testing to see how they handle in the long term of things. According to benchmarks, you can see that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 scores quite a bit higher than the predecessor, the Exynos 2200. Luckily, from what we've seen, both of these processors are quite good, just with the slight edge going to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which seems to have a little bit better battery performance as well as a little bit of better heat dissipation for some reason. Ultimately, you probably couldn't go wrong with either one of these processors, but it just depends on where your region is in the world, on what processor you're going to get. So it's good to know this in advance, and it's just something to keep in mind before you spend a whopping $1,200 on a smartphone. This brings us to number 9 on the list, and that is it has less RAM this year than even last year, and even if you go back 2 years to the S20 Ultra, which is pretty surprising. So the S22 Ultra is now starting out with 8 GB of RAM, as well as it can go up to 12 GB of RAM if you do have a higher capacity phone. If you go over to last year, you can see that the S21 Ultra started off with 12 GB of RAM, and that was consistent throughout the whole layout. What seems to be even more surprising is that a phone from almost 2 years ago actually shipped with even more than that, starting off at 12 GB of RAM on the S20 Ultra and going all the way up to 16 GB of RAM if you opted for the 512 GB storage variant. Now, Samsung has responded to this because it just seems quite odd to have your new flagship smartphone shipping with less gigabytes of RAM, and they say that due to the new software optimization, you can actually use a feature called RAM Plus, which will then use some of your storage as virtual RAM. But sadly, in real world scenarios, we've seen that it doesn't really help that much. And so all of us pretty much think that this was kind of a bad option, and something just to keep in mind. This brings us to number 8 on the list, and that is at a starting price of $1,200, this phone does not ship with a charger, which is pretty ridiculous. I mean, if you're spending this much money, and this is just the starting price, by the way, on this phone, it's pretty crazy that they wouldn't ship it with a new charger, especially considering that this phone now features 45-watt fast charging, which is something that they're pretty much hyping up a lot. And so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that on a global perspective, why wouldn't you ship that really awesome charger in the box to show off the speeds of your new phone? This all pretty much started a couple years ago when Apple decided to not ship a charger in the box, and surprise, surprise, Samsung kind of followed suit shortly after. Now, these two companies are not the only ones doing this as well. Google also followed short in the Pixel line, as well as quite a few other competitors. Basically, just to clarify, I think that it's pretty cool that Samsung finally opted for faster charging on their smartphone, but I do think it's a bit ridiculous that at such a high price point, you don't ship that with the box. Even if you say that it's better for the environment, I feel like having two separate packages just doesn't really seem to solve the problem. This brings us to number 7. The battery size can be deceiving of the S22 Ultra. So yes, it does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, but something to consider is that for the last 3 years, that has been the same size capacity of all the Ultra smartphones, from the S20, the S21, and now the new S22 Ultra. Now, it is really cool that even in adding the S Pen onto this new S22 Ultra, that they were able to keep the same size capacity. We have seen in the past that the Note line, which is basically what the new S22 Ultra is, they tend to shrink the battery size due to that S Pen. But this year they decided not to, and they were somehow able to engineer that to work efficiently enough. Sadly though, for this year, it seems a little bit deceiving because yes, it does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, but we've seen countless battery comparisons for real world use, and sadly, this is not the battery champ. The iPhone 13 Pro Max crushes it completely across the board, as well as we've even seen situations where the S21 Ultra from last year has also outlasted this battery. So it's a little bit weird. We think that it might be due to software optimization, maybe because it's a new device, or it also could be due to the fact that S Pen does require some sort of battery. So maybe in the long term, it just kind of drains it a little bit more. Also, going back to one of our previous points, it kind of depends on the processor that you have in this phone. But ultimately, just keep that in mind. This is not going to be the best battery life on the market. It does have a really nice battery to last most of the day, but this is not the top champ. It is pretty good with charging, but still there are other Android phones out there that have faster charging as well. So do keep that in mind. This brings us to number 6 on the list, and that is the new S22 Ultra comes in some really awesome colors, but there is a catch. So there are 3 exclusive colors that you can only get on Samsung.com, and sadly, due to supply and demand, pretty much all of these colors are now officially sold out, and we don't know when they will be back. Now granted, at least some of the base model colors are really good as well. You have them in a really nice white color, you have Phantom Black, and you have this new green color too, which look really cool, and I'm really excited to get them hands-on. Ultimately, it's really great to see Samsung going out of their comfort zone and adding so many colors, but it just kind of sucks for the end consumer if you can't grab them as soon as they're out, because a lot of these are getting sold out, especially the exclusive colors, and hopefully they just keep it consistent, and that way everybody kind of gets the device that they want. Number 5. There is no micro SD card slot on this phone. Yes, they discontinued it on the Note 20 line, and they haven't brought it back since. Sadly, they are not returning it this year. It's just something to know. I know a lot of people have been getting used to not having a micro SD card expansion slot, but in my case, I really do find it quite useful, especially considering you can buy a smaller portioned storage option on your phone, and you can upgrade it later on. But most people are used to it now, so just something to know. One thing that they're doing this year to combat that is that they are adding a new 1 terabyte option, which is really awesome, but as you know, it's very expensive. So something just to know is that the higher variations give you more RAM on the higher storage configurations, as well as something just to know is that since there is no micro SD card slot and it's been a couple years, it probably will not be returning anytime soon. Now we are at number 4. Now number 4 is there is no upgrade to the fingerprint scanner. So the fingerprint scanner is under the display. It's an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, that comes from Qualcomm. Now they have upgraded it to the 2nd gen back on the S21 Ultra, but this year they are not upgrading it to the 3rd gen. It is still the 2nd gen ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. So just something to know, it is not the latest and greatest technology, especially when it comes to speed or efficiency. Yes, it is better than the 1st generation that were on Samsung devices, but just keep that in mind, it is going to be the exact same as last year's. Number 3 is design. This is a beautiful, beautiful design, but it's subjective. Some people love this design, some people not so much. A lot of people are a little bit discouraged due to the fact that they have removed the whole camera housing for more of a flush look. Now I think this looks quite excellent, but a lot of people are kind of mixed feelings about it. So just keep this in mind that this is quite a big different design, especially on the back. The front looks pretty much identical, but the back definitely looks quite a bit different. It looks a little more simplistic, and a lot of people think that it kind of looks like an unfinished product. So something just to know that this is quite a big difference, as well as with different cases. It just looks a little bit unfinished in my opinion as well. But I do think that these camera housings look excellent. They're really nice sensors, and ultimately it looks like a beautiful product, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more, as opposed to last year where they had the whole camera housing pretty much separated from the rest of the body, and it kind of blends around the edges. And I thought that looked really, really cool, especially in like the Phantom Black color. This brings us to number 2, which is the display. This is a beautiful, beautiful display, but there are some things to know about this amazing display. Yes, it is super awesome that they have even upgraded the refresh rate, not just to 120 Hertz, but now it can go all the way down to just 1 Hertz, which in theory should give you better battery life, as well as just make your whole experience on your smartphone a whole lot smoother. Something to know though is that opposed to the regular S22 and the S22 Plus, which have flat displays, which a lot of people love, this Ultra variant does not. It actually curves around the edges. It's something to know, especially for screen protectors, cases, and even potential drop tests, that your phone may be more fragile as opposed to a more durable device, sadly. And that is just because a curved display, as well as it looks so beautiful, it seems to be just a little bit more fragile, as well as a little bit more prone to accidental touches. Sadly, I just have to mention it because it definitely is something to know, especially when you're spending this much money again on a phone. I feel like a broken record, but I mean, it's a lot of money, and I feel like you should know every little detail about this thing before you buy. Finally, we are at number 1, and thank you so much if you made it this far in the video. Number 1 is video recording, and that is, it is not as great as Samsung has been claiming. We're very disappointed this year for this. Samsung is the best probably in the whole market for an Android phone for video recording, but it still just isn't as good as the iPhone. The iPhone 13 whole lineup is quite a bit better. It just has better stabilization. We see that continually the HDR is kind of a toss-up. The Samsung might be better in one scenario and the iPhone better in another. But ultimately, we just wanted better stabilization that it can compete with its main competitor, the iPhone. And this year, as much as Samsung has claimed over and over again that they have optimized it and now it's like the best, it really isn't, sadly. We've seen countless tests where they are pretty neck and neck, but we were expecting Samsung to blow it out of the water. And this year, it sadly just isn't that. So this is ultimately the top 10 list of all the things that you should know before you spend so much money on this new device. This is an amazing device with a lot of amazing features. We love that the Note line is basically back from the dead after they killed it off with the Note 20 Ultra. So we're so glad that the S Pen is finally back. Let us know in the comment section down below what your favorite device is currently, as well as if you are looking forward to the new S22 Ultra or any of the S22 lineup. These are some amazing smartphones with a lot of really powerful tech inside, as well as, but you know, they're pretty expensive. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and be sure to check out some of our other videos as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.